So yesterday you guys read the first half of lesson 18, which that talked about how we acquired some land. One of them was called Florida, and it talked about who explored the different lands to even know what kind of land that we can get. And this all involves manifest destiny because it talked about how Americans wanted more and more land, and they thought it was their belief to gain this land and to have this land just because they lived there. So this all aligns with manifest destiny and how they believed, the Americans believed, that they have the right to own this land. And you found out later on in this chapter that we required a lot of land. And it was because Americans were so motivated to keep expanding and to keep expanding where they lived and their certain beliefs. So this leads us to talk about Texas. So in the early 1800s, Spain ruled Mexico. Part of this region was what we know as the state of Texas. In 1821, Mexico gained independence from Spain and they became free. So once they were free, the Mexican government wanted more settlers in Texas. They wanted more settlers because they wanted more people to raise crops, have animals, pay taxes. Taxes that means more money for the government, and they wanted people to follow the Catholic religion, which I think is awesome. Woo woo, Catholic religion. So they wanted more people to come out there and do those things. So what the Mexican government did was they offered free land to the Americans, and about 20,000 Americans started living there. And that eventually outnumbered the Mexicans. And so a lot of tension and fighting began between the Americans and the Mexicans. They fought about slavery and they fought about how Texas should join the U.S. Right now they're independent from the U.S., but a lot of Americans are saying you should join America. You should become a state in America. But the Mexican government did not like that. So by 1835, many fights started breaking out because the Mexican government wanted Texas to have its own government. And when they finally declared independence in 1836, the Mexico government attacked the people of Texas, and many battles and fights happened. Eventually, the people of Texas won, and Texas was independent. But in 1845, Congress made Texas the 28th state of America. So what happened was Mexico wanted Texas, and they wanted their own government, but Americans wanted Mexico to be in the U.S., and there was lots of battles, and eventually the people of Texas won, and Texas was independent. And then finally in 1845, Congress, which is what our government is in America, finally made Texas the 28th state of America. So they bought it from Mexico. So that leads us into another section of what we eventually would own, called the Oregon Country. So in the 1800s, Americans wished to control the territory called Oregon Country. This was controlled by both Great Britain and the U.S., while Russia controlled Russia. So I have a little map right here. So this is where, in the United States, this is where Oregon Country was. You can see that's pretty close to California up here. And this is what people wanted right here. So I wanted to show you a quick map of where the Oregon Country was. So James Polk, the president in 1845, promised he would get this land for the U.S., but no one wanted to start a war over it. So eventually, over some time, Great Britain gave us some of the land in the Oregon Country. But unfortunately, this meant that Americans started to settle there, and American Indians were kicked out. A lot of American Indians lived in that area. But since we got that land from Great Britain, we thought it was technically our right to be there. And American Indians have settled there for years and years. And we eventually kicked them out or made them go settle somewhere else because that was now our land to own. So it was a goodbye for America, but it kind of sucked for the American Indians who have lived there for years, and now they were told to go live somewhere else, or there would be some fighting going on. So it was very unfortunate for the American Indians. And then this leads us into the Mexican succession. And this was the next part of land we acquired. And we acquired states like California, New Mexico, Utah, and Nevada. And before we were able to get this land, we had to fight for it. So the Americans had to fight for this land that Mexico owned. So because we had to fight for it, this became the war called the Mexican War. And this war was between the Mexican government and Americans. So, but why did it happen? Well, Mexico wanted Texas back, and Mexico knew that many Americans wanted other Mexican lands. And let me go to the next page because it has a map. Nope, it was on that page. Let me go back. So we're going to look at a map here. Scrolling down. So Mexican War right here. So this says the Mexico after 1848. So you can see right here. And the territory lost by Mexico to U.S. in 1848. So they lost this land right here. And eventually President Polk and Congress declared war on Mexico because they had a fight. And it happened on American soil, so that meant that we could eventually declare war on Mexico. And this war lasted about 2 years of fighting, and both sides suffered. Lots of people died because of it. But eventually, after 2 years, Mexico surrendered and they signed a treaty. So we gained a huge amount of land over this. But over the years later, once everyone was getting settled, American Indians and Mexicans were forced to find new land. So a lot of Americans moved into this land, but a lot of American Indians and Mexicans were already living there. And, Americans needed more land to expand. So they would either give them really poor jobs to give to them, or they would say, hey, you need to get out of this land. This is ours. You need to go settle somewhere else. So a lot of people were forced out. Mexicans and American Indians were forced out of their land, which was sad. But as you can see in this map right here, America has expanded, has gained a lot of land, has, I would say, successfully done Manifest Destiny, because they started over here, right here, if you see my mouse, over here with these 13 colonies. And as you found out, we gained a lot of land. And even though a lot of people died over it, a lot of people had to move out, a lot of Native Americans lost their land, Mexican people lost their land. America and Americans thought that this was their natural right. Some of them thought this was their natural right to expand. But without those people expanding, we would not have the whole United States right here. Without those people motivated to get that land, we would not have the whole United States, or it would have taken us way longer to get. So a lot of good came out of what we were doing, but a lot of ugliness and a lot of sad things happened as well. So that is basically our chapter right here. And you can read over the lesson summary that goes over what you just read. But yeah, that is how United States expanded over time.